Hey friends, welcome back to Reality with Riss. Today we're going to be doing a very different style video. I'm going to be getting my hair and makeup done by my girlfriend. She's not my real girlfriend, but hey, whatever. So anyways, I'm going to get my hair and makeup done and we're going to be answering some commonly asked questions about modeling and social media and just talking about the industry in general. So let's get into it. I have my phone, trusty dusty pocket here. So I asked on my Instagram story for you guys to ask me some questions. So I'm just gonna read off of those. So the first question I have is, how do you get past the self-doubt and where do you start? So I've addressed this in a reel that I recently posted about Miami Swim Week. And I really enjoy modeling because I like to challenge myself to do hard things. And I think a lot of girls enjoy that about modeling because it forces you to push past the self-doubt. It forces you to get uncomfortable. And I feel like you never grow when you're in your comfort zone. And so modeling is just something that forces me to do that every day, whether I like it or not. My first 2 years of modeling, I would cry before every photo shoot. Jen knows. I would sit in her chair and cry. And photographers that I've worked with, they know it was hard. But you push past it, and confidence comes from doing hard things and getting out of your comfort zone. So I just say nothing grows in your comfort zone. You have to get uncomfortable to be great at anything, no matter what the industry. The second part of that first question was, and where do you start? So that is the number one question I always get, is girls wanting to get into modeling and they want to know where to start. Personally, I was recommended by friends and family. They just thought I was photogenic, so they said I should start modeling. So what I did was just ask friends to take photos of me and just practice getting comfortable in front of the camera. So a lot of people feel like, oh, I want to start a YouTube. I need a whole camera. I need lights. I need a setup. Like, just start where you're at. So when it comes to modeling, just start by taking photos of yourself with a tripod, using your phone. Like, it does not need to be this elaborate thing that you're putting a bunch of money into. You first just need to learn the basics. So practice posing in front of the mirror, learn your angles, learn how to work your facial expressions. Facial expressions are a lot harder than one may think, because in your mind you think you're doing one thing with your face and in reality you're doing a totally different thing. So yeah, just start where you're at, take some photos of yourself, you and your friends go out and take photos, and then once you feel comfortable with that, start reaching out to photographers, seeing if they'd like to collab. And by collab, that means that the photographer most likely would be doing it for free if they're in a space that they want to do that. And so you both would be getting mutual benefits from it. You would be getting practice as a model. They would be getting practice as a photographer. You want to reach out to newer photographers. A very well-established photographer most likely is not going to want to collab with a brand new non-experienced model. So just take that into consideration. Reach out to other people that are growing in the industry and you guys can learn together. And start taking social media a lot more seriously. That's where I was discovered as a model, is on social media. And that's, where the future is going. Everything's on socials. So yeah, just start with taking photos, getting comfortable posing, and then start reaching out to photographers. And if you want to join an agency, start doing research about agencies in your area and looking into what type of modeling you'd be interested in, whether that's runway, whether it's commercial modeling, beauty. There's so many different forms of modeling, so just consider what type of modeling you're interested in and do a lot of research. YouTube University, Google, I do a lot of research and it's all out there on the internet for you guys. You just have to be resourceful. I have two questions that are very similar. One girl asked me, I want to be a curvy model, but it scares me. Has it been difficult to be a curvy model? How did you start? I want to be a curve model. Being a curve model is just like being a model, same thing. But people will put you in categories, and that's something you need to be aware of when you're starting a modeling career. Your entire job is your physical appearance and selling products that you're going to be modeling. So to be a model, you must have thick skin. You must be confident within yourself and not need outside validation to make you feel good, because when you're on set, people will talk about you like you're an object, because that is the job. You are there to present a certain physical feature, you're there to sell a product, and they need to know exactly what you look like, and you're getting booked based on your measurements, based on your features, your hair, your eyes. they booked you specifically for what look you have. So just don't take things personal. It's not about your character. It's not personal. It's just the job. So a lot of people ask me, like, how do I deal with the criticism of being a curve model? Because as a curve model, you're going to have people that think you look amazing. You're going to have people that think you are too big. And then you're going to have people, like I have plus size agencies that want me to gain weight to work in the plus size factor or sector. So you just need to be 100% sure of yourself and be happy with where you are physically and book jobs according to that. I don't recommend you change your body to book jobs, because if that's the case, you're always going to be trying to shrink yourself or trying to change yourself to fit someone else's beauty standard. You want to just be happy with yourself and book jobs from where you feel most comfortable. So for me, I'm most comfortable at my current weight. I enjoy having muscles, but I also enjoy being thicker. I do have a pretty high fat percentage compared to like a skinny standard size model, but I feel happy at this weight. And of course, could I book more jobs if I was skinnier? Sure, but that's just not the case. You don't want to shapeshift yourself to please other people. You book jobs based on where you're at, and just go where you're appreciated. That's what I always tell girls, like, go where you're appreciated. And for example, in Miami, I am appreciated. People love my body shape, and brands down here love to work with me. But when I was in New York, brands were not as in love with my look because they do a lot of high fashion. So they want a skinnier, taller, more slender model. Rather than myself, the designers would have to tailor outfits just to fit me, and that just doesn't economically make sense for them. So it's not personal. It's not like the designer thinks I'm ugly or, not fit, but for their look, it's just a certain look. So consider that when you're getting into modeling. If you have a more of a New York look, then look into that industry. If you are more of an LA girl, look there. Miami girl, Miami loves curve. Miami loves ethnic women. So just go where you're appreciated if you're gonna start taking modeling very seriously. Another thing a lot of girls ask me is, do I have to live in New York to model? You don't have to live in New York, but I do recommend living in a larger city that has modeling opportunities. So I came from a very small town and I had to move because there was no modeling jobs there. So for me, I stayed within my state. I'm already from Florida, but I know that my modeling career would be best in Miami because Miami is what appreciates my body shape. But I've had a lot of friends that moved to LA because LA is a better sector for them to work in. But New York, Miami, and LA in the United States are the 3 hot spots for modeling and social media. So just consider that if you're wanting to take it very, very seriously, possibly consider moving to a bigger city. So I've had people ask me questions in different words, but I'm basically going to summarize it. And it's basically asking me, like, does my body shape hurt or help me in the industry? And I touched on this a little bit before, but my body is very unique. I'm considered a curve model because up top, I'm very appearing to be much slimmer. All of my body weight and like my body fat is in my lower half. So that would constitute me as a curve model, but a curve model is a very new sector. It used to just be traditional and plus. And now we have this whole middle sector, which is curve. I have had people want me to lose weight or gain weight to make it easier to book me, but I just refuse. This is my median. This is where I sit, and this is where I'm most comfortable. And even with working out a ton, this is how my body is shaped. So would it be easier for me to book jobs if I lost weight? Maybe. But I am still big boned, so my structure, my body shape is always going to be larger. I'm never going to be petite and super skinny unless I was very unhealthy in ways to get super skinny, which I'm just not willing to do that. So again, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to your body shape, it's not limiting. It's not gonna not get you jobs. There is models with all shapes and sizes. You just want to do your research and go where you're respected. Go where you're appreciated. So if you're a plus size model, look to get in with brands that are size inclusive. You want to work with agencies that are size inclusive, and even plus size agencies specifically. And I honestly think if you're a curve model, it's a better advantage because it is a new sector. It's a new category of models. So for me personally, I think it gets me booked even more because a lot of curvy women grew up feeling like they were too big because it was just skinny. You were either skinny or you weren't, and everyone wanted to be skinny. So a lot of curvy models still have a lot of self-esteem issues, and they don't put themselves out there to be a model. And they want to, but they just don't take that leap. So I feel like for curve girls, there's less of us, and that has worked to my advantage. So I don't think any shape or physical attribute would prevent you from modeling. There's girls with skin conditions that model. There's girls that are super short that model. There's super tall girls that model. Plus size, like all shapes and sizes nowadays can model. Will it be harder? Sure. But modeling is hard in general. Whether you look perfect or whether you have some sort of physical thing about you that you don't like, modeling is hard at the end of the day. But I always tell girls, like, the more unique you look, that makes you stand out. So being quote unquote perfect or traditionally beautiful doesn't always work in your favor. Being a little bit different and unique definitely works in your favor. So don't let your height or your size deter you from modeling. I promise you, when I first started, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not model material. No one's gonna like me, because I grew up thinking I needed to be a size 0 to be a model. But that's just not the reality today. It's 2024. Yes, it's gonna be hard, but everything in life worth having is hard. So how do I deal with hate comments? So that is a part of the industry. If you're gonna put yourself on the internet, you have to be okay with getting people's opinions, whether you asked for them or not. When you first start, it is a transition because as models and as creators, you are just put out there into the fire and expected to take the heat. So it is a transition to get used to. For me personally, I always have had tough skin. Obesity ran in my family, and so I watched the way my dad handled that. He would always make a joke about his size before anyone else in the room could make the joke. And that's kind of how I approach things. I will always make a joke about myself before anyone else can attack me for it. And when it comes to hate comments, I've built a tough skin, and modeling has helped me build an even thicker skin. Just be comfortable with where you're at. You're never going to please everyone. I have one side of the internet that thinks I am this gorgeous goddess, amazing piece of art. And then the other side that thinks I am a fat, disgusting pig, shouldn't put myself out there. That's just the world. And we're not people pleasing, okay? We're done people pleasing. We want to grow out of that habit. So rock with the people that appreciate you. Make sure you actually feel the love when you get good comments. A lot of creators just look past all the compliments they get and they only see that one hate comment. You're getting so much more love and support. Give that attention. Don't give the one troll attention. So to me, I just think the internet's not a real place. People are warriors behind their keyboards. So take all of that into perspective. These people are hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. So I always approach hate comments with grace because no happy, healthy person is gonna be leaving hate comments. It's always someone that is battling their own demons that has something to say about you. So that's how I look at it. It's the internet, it's not that deep. The people in your real life love you, and that's all that matters. You don't need to impress every Dick, Joe, and Harry on the internet. I've had someone ask me, what does the future of modeling look like with all of the AI and advancements in technology? So I always tell people this, like, advice that you got 2 years ago probably is not gonna match to now because technology is moving so fast. And people have asked me, like, do I fear AI? And I don't fear it, but it definitely makes you on your toes. You have to be constantly evolving and changing. A lot of people don't like to change. I feel like that's one of the things I try to pride myself on is changing my strategies as I go because the internet is constantly changing. So when it comes to modeling and AI, modeling may become obsolete because there already is AI modeling agencies and there's already AI models, meaning these are models that are not real, that they are creating on the internet. And that is more cost efficient for brands, that's more cost efficient for everyone. And it is definitely something to consider in the future. So I think a way to combat that basically would be, I think that what I foresee happening is that people are going to start valuing lives a lot more. So if you're a model, whether you're established or new, I think that's something you should definitely consider, is going live more, because people are really starting to crave that real, genuine connection, not just post. Because now there's posts out there that you don't know if it's a real person or not. Like there is constantly people like wondering, like, is this CGI? Is this AI? Or is this like an actual person? So I think a way to combat that would be to be streaming or to be going live and in person. Even though the internet is the new wave, people are starting to value in-person meetings and events a lot more, because everything comes and goes, and with the advancement of technology, people are starting to crave real more and more. So yes, it is a little bit scary to know that basically technology could take our jobs, and it's happening with everyone, with customer service people, it's happening all across the world. But you just have to be willing to evolve and move with the trends. So I think definitely showing up on live more would be a benefit. What is the difference between an agency model and a freelance model? So I would consider myself a freelance model that has one agent. A lot of girls have many agents. As long as you're non-exclusive with that agent, you can work with more agents. If you are with an agency, it depends on what your contract says, but if it's exclusive, that means you can only work with that agency and you would only be getting jobs through that agency. There's pros and cons to each. I can't speak too much on agency side because, like I said, I am freelance. But as an agency model, I feel like a lot of girls desire that more because there's not so much of a guessing game. You're being told what to do, how to post, you're being told what jobs to show up for, and you're being not given jobs, but your agent is telling you what jobs you've received. Versus being a freelance model. Being a freelance model is not for the faint of heart. It is definitely for someone with more of an entrepreneur attitude, because you do have to wear a lot of hats and you have to have a lot of dedication to the craft. So as a freelance model, you're being your own agent. So that means you're constantly pitching yourself to brands and looking for fresh opportunities. That means you have to create your own invoices and negotiate your own rates. You have to get your own glam team or make sure that the jobs have a glam team for you. There's a lot of things that go into being a freelance model. I personally prefer it. I like having full control over my career, and I like getting to say yes and no and getting to negotiate for myself. But I do have the help of one agent. So if I wanted to get 10 agents, I could do that as long as they all were non-exclusive. So yeah, it just depends on your attitude and how you want to work. A lot of agency models are happy because they get a lot of things set up for them. So events and networking and jobs, all of these things are set up for you and you're told exactly where to go. So I would say if you're an agency model, you're like an employee. And if you're a freelance model, you're an entrepreneur. So you just kind of have to go with what you feel is more so your best working style. How to work with brands is the number one question I get regarding social media, and it is multifaceted. So working with brands changes with the industry. So being a brand influencer a few years ago used to be very lucrative, versus now good paying brand deals are lesser. But I will say, if you have a niche, so if you are very niched down and known for one thing or two things, I feel like brands are more willing to work with you. So mommy influencers, fitness influencers, if you have a very specific thing and you have a tight community that follows you for that one specific thing, brand deals are a lot more brands are a lot more willing to work with you. I think brands now are valuing micro influencers, so they don't want to work with girls that have millions of followers. They would rather work with a girl that has 10,000 to 100,000 committed followers, that have a real community of engaged followers that really trust and value them. So don't feel like your following is what makes or breaks getting a brand deal, because there is girls with less than 5,000 followers getting large brand deals. It's all about engagement nowadays, and I think what you should always value is nurturing your community. It's not about having huge numbers. It's about having a community that values what you say, trusts you, and engages with you. So there's brand deals out there. It may be less than years in the past, but they're still out there. Just make sure you know what you're posting about and what your goal is with your social media. It's not about going viral. Going viral can actually hurt you more than it can help you. So don't be chasing likes and numbers. Make sure you're giving your audience value and they feel like they know you and you're creating a community. So I was asked, what was a moment in your career that truly humbled you? I love you and look up to you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. A time that really humbled me was moving to Miami. I was always confident in myself. Not that I thought that I was the most attractive and the best model, because I really didn't start modeling till I moved to Miami, but I was just comfortable in my own skin and I didn't feel like I needed outside validation to make me feel good. But when I moved to Miami and came to my first photo shoot, I was definitely humbled. The beauty standards are just so much higher. I came from a very small town in Central Florida, and I always felt attractive, but I wasn't in any situations where I needed to be like absolutely stunning. So when I came and started working in Miami, I was very humbled to know that I needed to work on my physical appearance to be successful in this industry. So that means taking a lot better care of myself in the gym. I got in the gym way harder. Keeping up with your hair. You can't let your hair get grown out. Teeth whitening, making sure my skin looked good. I had really, really bad skin when I first moved here. And so I had to seriously start taking care of my skin and taking medications to help my skin to be good at this job. So yeah, moving to a big city definitely humbled me. That was a lot when I first moved here. I got a little depressed, but it forced me to get better. But yeah, coming from a small town to a big city is very, very humbling experience. All right, so we did a little shirt change because now she's doing my hair, and when we're done, I need to be able to take it off. Anyways, so now I'm just going to talk freely about some things I've been asked, or just some things that go on in the industry between modeling and social media. During the Q&A section, I was reading a lot of questions that asked me, how do I deal with being different as far as my body shape, and what are some experiences I've had in the industry? So like I said, I do model in Miami, and I went where I was appreciated. So if I started modeling in New York, I think my experience would have been wildly different. But because I came to a city that loves curvy, thick women, I've had a great experience, but I have had a few not so great. So I'll elaborate on those. So normally I do a lot of fitness and bikini modeling. Bikini modeling, they love me. Fitness modeling, sometimes I'm not always their cup of tea, but I think a lot of brands value my size and shape because it is much more realistic. A lot of people are deterred away from very, very, very fit models because they don't feel like it's realistic. So I think brands value that I am fit and I work out heavily, but I also have a very real, normal looking body. But an example of a time that wasn't so great for me was I was at a fitting, I was at a fitting and I was asked to be the headliner of this runway show. So they wanted me to be the headliner, meaning like I was the model with a large following and that had a really well-respected name in the runway world. So I was doing this as a favor to the production, and it was not something that I would normally do. So it was definitely me doing a favor for them. And I went to the fitting, and the designers treated me like I was a peasant. Like, I should not be there. The first designer, she looked at my comp card, and I showed up with no makeup because it was just a fitting. It wasn't necessary. And she looked at me, and then she looked at my comp card, and she was like, this isn't the same person. This is you? This is you. And I was like, yeah, this is me. I just don't have makeup on. And I'm looking at my comp card like, ma'am, clearly that's me. I look like that. And so she was like, she asked me like 3 times, and then she was like, oh, okay. And she put me in the clothes. And then once she saw my body, she was like, oh yes, body. But it definitely made me feel like she didn't think I was pretty, but she thought my body was good to sell the clothes. So that was like felt condescending. And then I went to the next designer, and it was gowns, and she was a European woman, and she was a little bit older, so I could tell she was kind of stuck in her ways, and she liked what she liked. And she definitely gave me the vibe that you're way too big to model for me. So she looked at me, and she was just staring at my hips, and she was like, wow, you're so big. And she had like an accent, so I could tell maybe like it was broken English, but she was like, you're so big. And I was like, well, she was like, what are your measurements? So I started to tell her, and normally when you say your measurements, you speak from your bust to your waist to your hips. So I started with my bust measurement, and she was like, no, it's just your hips. They're so big. What is their size? And so I told her my measurements, and it was just not embarrassing to me because I was just laughing it off, but to any other model, this would be very embarrassing. She was speaking very loudly in front of everyone, and the news was there. So people from the news were filming while this was all going on, and I'm being like fat shamed in the background. But she basically was like, oh, you're so big. I'm gonna have to get you something stretchy. And then she's shouting across the room to her stylist to give me something stretchy. So the rest of the models are wearing these gorgeous gowns that are like champagne, nude color, dripped in diamonds. And she basically gave me a dress that looked like a Halloween costume. And for me, it felt like how plus size girls must feel. Because when you're a plus size woman and you go shopping, the clothes are just nowhere near as cute. And they struggle with trying to find things that are trendy and fashionable and flattering. And it feels like designers just make things ugly on purpose for plus size girls. So that's how I felt. I felt like she gave me this bright blue dress with peacock feathers coming out, while every other girl looked like she was going to go on a red carpet. And I looked like a peacock. And so I left the fitting, and I just told the production, I was like, and this was my experience. I was doing this as a favor to you guys. And, you know, I'm one of the larger models that's a part of this production, and the designers just treated me like trash. So I'm no longer doing this show. So that was just a point where I had to stand up for myself, and just, if you're not being respected and I'm doing a favor for you for free, I'm not going to be treated like that. So that was just a small instance. That's not happened to me a lot. Also, because I am a freelance model, so I only work with brands that want to work with me. I'm not working with an agency where I'm being sent to jobs that maybe I wasn't the agency's first pick or the designer's first pick. So that's the good thing about being a freelance model, is that I get to choose who I work with, and I make sure that they match my align, like that we align, and that I know that they're going to want me. I don't want to be anywhere where I'm not wanted. So, but it hasn't happened a lot. But I think another example is when I went to New York, I went to a lot of castings, and designers looked straight past me, and I think that I was just too big for their liking. But a lot of designers did say that they liked me, but because my measurements were so drastic, because from my hips to my waist is a 20-inch difference. So the designers were like, we love your look, but we just don't have time to tailor an outfit for your measurements. So it's just to be understood. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of talk about body inclusivity in the industry, and at one point it was very, very trendy a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, to be body inclusive. And I have had a lot of my plus size model friends and myself experience that it's going backwards again. I think the insurgence of Ozempic and everyone wanting to get super skinny has swayed the industry, and that's just how it goes. Bodies go through trends, unfortunately. The female body is like, they want you thick, they want you tiny, they want you, athletic, they want you whatever. And that's just happened throughout history for a long time. So Unfortunately, that's really what's in style right now, is this like heroin chic, super skinny. And I just urge every girl in general, to not give in to what's trending. Do what feels good to you, be at your healthiest, because if you try to keep up with trends, you're gonna be shape-shifting, and that's just not sustainable, and it's not good for your mental health. But there has been a lack of plus size models versus 2 years ago, where there was a lot, and now it's kind of going backwards, and there's less opportunities for plus size models and even for curve models. But everything is ebbs and flows, and the trends will change, and I think it will roll back, where people are now getting upset that there's not enough inclusivity. So that's just the reality. When I first moved to Miami, I mentioned previously that I was very humbled. I was already confident within myself, but I was new to modeling, and I was very unaware of the high beauty standards that are out there, especially for a model. People expect you to be perfect. People expect you to match all the beauty standards and just be on and gorgeous at all times. And that's just not the reality. And that's a part of where my Instagram and all my social media handles came from, Reality with Riss, because I wanted to showcase what's reality, okay? Like, yes, I can be a model, yes, I can be a content creator, but I'm not going to just show up online and appear perfect, because I know how detrimental that can be for the next girl, and especially for young girls. Because when I first got into this, I was following women that portrayed perfection all the time, and it was very hard on me mentally. So I do my best to show up, not always with makeup, and to show you guys what's real. And especially with my body, in some angles I look snatched to the gods, and in other angles you see a little side roll, or you see that I'm bloated. And I try not to edit those things out or to not choose those photos. I try to choose a range of photos so that you see, like, my body doesn't look the same. You know, maybe because you're seeing me front on, I look like I have abs, but then when you see me from the side, you see that I have, you know, a little bit of a stomach. So yes, it was hard when I first got here, because I was new to having the spotlight on me, and I felt the need to be perfect, but I also was like, no, I need to show my reality. But to be vulnerable on the internet, it does take a toll on you. I want to be vulnerable, and I want to show up real and raw and authentic so that other women feel that, but at the same time, that is hard on me. It's made me stronger, and I continue to force myself to do it, but a lot of times when I'm very vulnerable on the internet, it hurts me a little bit, because I want to do it, because I want the next woman to see it and feel seen and feel like they can connect with me, because I never want to perceive like this fake, perfect persona. But I would be lying if I said it wasn't hard. It is hard to show up real and raw and with no makeup and talk about my insecurities, because there's always going to be the trolls that want to attack me for that or use my insecurities against me. But that's just a part of my career, and that's part of what I stand for as a creator, because I could easily be a creator that's guarded and doesn't let you in and only lets you see what I want you to see. But I try my best to be open and be as authentic as I can, because I know when I was on the other end looking at other girls, it is a lot on the mental. And so it's refreshing to see a girl that has a following and is working with brands and all these things that also is like you and has insecurities and has the same trials and tribulations. So it's a constant work in progress. I definitely have to give myself breaks from my phone. Sometimes I only create content and I don't consume content, because even though I'm on the internet and I have likes and followers and all this glamorous stuff, I get affected by consuming content just like anyone else. So I do my best to also follow other creators that are good about trying to be authentic on the internet, because as much as we know that social media is fake, our brain still eats it up. You know, like we see the glamour and the glitz and the money, and even though we know, like in the back of our mind, we know that that's not all real and that people are perceiving, you know, the brain still processes it. So it's just giving yourself grace and knowing when to put the phone down. My biggest habit is that I am on social media Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday I go ghost. That is my off time, and I pretty much don't post and don't engage with anyone on Saturday and Sunday. That is my me time. So if you're out there, you definitely need to find a balance between yourself and fueling your own self-confidence and, you know, your real life before putting everything into the internet, because at the end of the day, the internet is not a real place and it does not really exist. At some point in my career, I feel like I've become a mentor to other models and people in the social media space. And I never declared this for myself, but I feel like I've kind of become that person for people. So I do get asked a lot of questions about how to navigate this industry. And one thing I always tell people is I think a lot of models and content creators miss out on blessings because they are so focused on the monetary exchange. So for instance, my first year in Miami, I did a lot of work for free, but whenever I do work for free, I make sure to maximize on that opportunity. So I don't just show up, do the shoot and leave. I make sure I get everyone's social media. I talk to every single person in the room, and I really garnish a relationship with that brand, with that photographer. And that's how I've navigated my entire career. And I feel like that's what sets you apart as a model. But that's what makes you more valuable, is being more than just a model, because they can find a million beautiful faces, but can they find a model that is well liked and has a good personality and knows how to move the room at a photo shoot? Because you're gonna spend 8 hours with these people, 4 to 8 hours. They don't wanna hire someone that is a diva, that doesn't talk, that has an attitude, that's on their phone the whole time. And I think leveraging relationships in any industry, but especially this industry, is the most lucrative thing you can do. I've gotten most of all my best paying jobs from free work I did in the beginning. So rather than turning away a job because it's not meeting your requirement monetarily, always consider that there is a lot of different ways to be paid than just monetary. So connections are huge. Connections is how I've built my entire career, like I've already said. But think about things before you just turn them down. A lot of collaborations or opportunities can come your way, but you always want to consider, like, who else is going to be in that room? What connections could I make? How could I turn this into a long-standing relationship? So for me, there has been many opportunities that I've received where I'm like, man, I just want to get paid for this. But I showed up because I knew that there was very reputable brands there. I knew that there was photographers that I've been dying to work with there. And as long as you get in the room and you can meet these people and you can network with these people, something will grow from that. So don't just turn away opportunities because you're not getting paid, because in this industry, people exchange services and it's not always with money. So make sure you're having good relationships and you're being good to people. When you're at shoots, you're always giving your first impression. People are always watching you, whether you're in line at a casting, the way you carry yourself on social media, the way you treat people, all of that plays into how often you will get booked for jobs. So just always keep that in mind. Be nice to people and help people along the way. I think in any industry, it can be competitive, and I hate that. I think that there's room for everyone, and I believe that the people that aren't in competition with others around them will go further. So for me personally, I take pride in trying to get other models and creators jobs. If I'm able to do the job and I know there's another girl that they may be interested, I always mention my friends' names in rooms, and I think people in the industry respect that about me, and I think that carries a lot of weight. If you're competitive and you don't want other people to win and you're a quote unquote gatekeeper, that energy will follow you. So if you're a gatekeeper and you don't want to share the blessings, people are not going to share the blessings with you. But because for me personally, I have always tried to connect the dots. I always try to connect a photographer friend I know to a model and a brand to a new model and things like that. I take pride in doing that, and I enjoy doing that because they're not taking that opportunity from me. If the opportunity was for me, it was meant for me and it's mine. But if I recommend a friend and they also like her, then we all win. But you can't be thinking that, oh, I'm not going to tell anyone about this other model because she'll take my job. I don't believe that to be true, and I don't think that's how it's I just don't think it's good business. So Be confident enough in yourself to know that the jobs that are meant for you are for you and no one else can take that from you. You're irreplaceable, and helping other people along the way will only help you in the end, because every time I bless someone else, it comes back to me and someone blesses me. So good karma helps more good karma, you know? So a lot of people just see the final product of my work. You don't see like the day-to-day what I do. And as a model, it sometimes feels like, when I first started modeling, for example, I was used to working 2 full-time jobs and just working all the time. So then I was working so much less hours, and I felt like a degenerate. Like I felt like a burden to society, because I was like, oh my God, I should be doing something right now. And my agent was like, your job is to keep yourself as happy and healthy as possible. So that has really shown to be true, because when I first moved here, I was depressed and I was constantly beating myself up, and then I wouldn't work out. And then when I got to jobs, I did not perform well because I was sad, I was out of shape. And then I realized, like, at the end of the day, to be a creator and a model, I have to be my best self. So what does that look like day to day? So for me, I wake up every morning and I do my best, because sometimes I roll out of bed, but other times I do my best to always take me time in the morning. So read my Bible, journal. I like to get lists and thoughts out of my head, because I have a million thoughts going through my head all day. So I try to jot down the things I need to get done that day. I'm a very task-oriented person. I feel like I pride myself on being productive. So I like to start off with some list and some journaling and have my coffee and just take time to be grateful in the morning. I write my gratitude list and then I start my day. Because if I just jump into my day and jump into my phone, it affects my mood so drastically, and then it's just downhill from there. So yeah, after I have my coffee and my me time, I always work out. I think working out is the biggest part of my career, keeping yourself in the best shape. And I'm not telling people you need to work out to lose weight. You need to work out to be your healthiest self. It's not always about an aesthetic, physical looking goal. It's about the mental clarity. It's about the mental health. It's about the physical health. So I think working out is huge, and it's pretty much the #1 part of being a model. And after I work out, normally I will have a photo shoot, or I will create content from home, or I'll be editing content, or I'll be emailing and negotiating with brands, or I'll be coming up with new ideas for fresh content, or I'll be editing content, engaging with my followers. So that means replying to DMs, replying to comments. That is very time consuming. That takes me hours. So I work for myself, but I do feel like I work a lot, but I love what I do, so it doesn't always feel like work. And then making sure I'm networking too. So going to events, and I don't go to events to drink and party and like rage, you know? I go to events to be in the industry, to make new friends, to nurture the relationships I already have. I think going to events and going to dinners and making sure I'm socializing with the people in my industry has really helped me as well. Yeah, and just making sure I'm eating healthy, working out, like I said, creating content, coming up with new ideas, talking to brands, editing content, engaging with my audience. That's what my day-to-day looks like. Trying to think if I'm leaving anything out. Yeah, a lot of filming, a lot of photos, and strategizing, you know, how to run my social medias. And yeah, that's my day-to-day. So I've been asked like how I blew up online, or like what was the turning point in my career. So I think I may have mentioned this a little bit before, but when I first moved to Miami and started modeling, things didn't just like blow up overnight for me. It was a slow burn until I started to do runway modeling. And when I first got here, for the first year to 2 years, I really struggled with self-confidence as far as a model. Like I was confident in myself as a person, but I was very unconfident in my skills as a model. And I think the turning point for me was when I did my first runway show. Where I'm from is a small town, and there's not a lot of diversity, and I was always considered fat, okay? That's what I was called, and I was popular, but I was always the butt end of my friends' jokes. So my size was always made into a joke, I feel like. So I didn't have the best feelings about my body, and I didn't think it was like anything to be super proud of, and I didn't think anyone would want my body shape. But then I realized if I would have grown up anywhere else in the world, like, people would have loved my body, but because of where I grew up, that directly affected how I felt about myself. So I moved to Miami and I started walking on the runway, and that's when things really changed for me. That's when I received a large roar of support from people in the audience, from people online, from people in the industry. And that's when I really started to feel more confident. And I know it's not always the best to get confidence from outside validation, but we're all human, okay? Like, it helps. So that's really when I felt like, wow, I really can be a model. Like, I could really do this, and people really like me. Like, they like my body the way it is. And there's not a lot of curvy women on the runway, and I think that's what made me blow up so much, is because they're not used to seeing a girl like me on the runway. There's a lot of girls like me that are on Instagram. Like, thick baddies are all over the internet. Like, that's nothing new. But to see a thick girl with legs and butt and everything that jiggles when you walk on a runway is not as common. So a lot of people ask me, like, oh, tell me how you did it. And I don't always think my process and my career is duplicatable, because it was really just me being different, me being curvy and being on a runway. And that's what took me from here to here in my career. And I'm so grateful. It was a little overwhelming at first when my videos were starting to get posted everywhere. And every time I open my phone, I see myself on the Explore page, and people making videos about my videos, and people making YouTube videos about me. It was a little overwhelming, but yeah, I think that was the major turning point in my career. It made me grow as a model and as a creator, but it also made my confidence grow substantially. And coming to Miami made me feel better about myself, because I've always had this body. It's changed as the years go on, but I've always been big boned, thick girl. And where I grew up, that wasn't appreciated. But when I came down to Miami, all the different diverse cultures, they loved it. Everyone was like, wow, like, you're a goddess, like, your body is goals. And I had never heard your body is goals until I moved to Miami. So that helped me a lot. So yeah, that would be the turning point in my career and in my self-confidence, was hitting the runway. So even if you don't think that you are the norm in whatever you're doing, I was not the norm for runway. I had people backstage giving me looks like, why are you here? And then after the show, I was the model that blew up, because I was different, and I'm not what everyone's used to. So don't be afraid to be different. I think being different is a superpower, and I think the world needs a lot more originality and authenticity, and being different is cool. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up there. Thank you guys for joining me for this little Q&A. Thank you, Jen, for being a part of my video. Make sure you follow her at Forever Sultry, and make sure you turn on the post notifications so you don't miss my next video. Love you guys.